I still can't believe that I went from being someone who couldn't even sit for 10 minutes a day to completing a 10-hour a day, 10-day Vipassana meditation. I've kept up the practice. I try to meditate at least 1 hour a day since coming home, and I have hope to continue. And at the end of the day, I think this type of experience just fills you with so much gratitude.
In every single interaction, there comes a moment when we wonder, do you see me? Do you hear me? Welcome to the Heart to Heart podcast. I'm your host, Gayathri Shukla, and I am the founder of Campfire Kinship, an organization building inclusive cultures through storytelling. This season is about exploring something that is core to being human, and that is our need to belong. So imagine gathering around a campfire with stories reaching your heart. I am partnering with CJSW 90.9 and recording in Mohkinstsis or Calgary, a sacred place where the Bow and Elbow Rivers meet, and home to Blackfoot Confederacy, Tsuut'ina, Stoney Nakoda Nations, Métis Nation, and all residents of Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well wherever you may be listening to this episode. So many of you reached out after the episode I dropped in July, where I was sharing that I was about to embark on a personal development journey, a very deep one, in fact, called Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And I so appreciate those of you who checked in after the episode and sent me encouraging messages. And I know that many of you are eager to hear how it went. What was the whole thing like? And did I find what I was looking for? Would I recommend it to others? And so today I decided that I would record the episode you've been waiting for and get to those questions. And for some of you, you may be considering Vipassana as something you would like to do for yourself. And right off the bat, I would say hands down, 100%, that it's wonderful that you're considering that. And I hope that this episode can maybe help a little bit with your decision. For others, you may just be curious, why on earth would someone choose to put themselves through a 10-day silent meditation retreat? Like, that sounds really intense. Well, you would be right in saying that this was a really intense experience, and I'll share all about that in a moment. And on the other hand, if you're just listening and wondering, what is this person talking about? What is Vipassana? I would encourage you to check out the July episode called Power of Presence, where I sort of introduced it. But really briefly, for those who haven't heard what it is, Vipassana literally means to see things as they really are. To see things as they really are. And it is one of India's most ancient practices of meditation. So ancient, in fact, it's said to have begun about 2,500 years ago. And it is the essence of what the Buddha taught. Siddhartha Gautama, who is the founder of Buddhism. However, this meditation is in no way limited to Buddhism. And in fact, what I really love about it, which is something they emphasize in the course as well, is that this is really religion agnostic, which means anyone from any religion or no religion can practice it. It's actually an art of living. In Hindi, you would say Jivan Jeene Ki Kala, an art of living that is a universal remedy to a universal malady. Nice. That rhymes. Universal remedy to a universal malady. What malady? The malady of suffering. Yes, I said the word suffering. You see, as a human being on this earth, to be a human being on this earth, we all face experiences of sorrow or joy, tragedies or triumphs. And the idea is that when we start getting attached to these experiences, meaning, let's say when unwanted things happen in your life, that brings sorrow. Or when wanted things don't happen, that curtails our joy. So when these wanted things don't happen or unwanted things happen, that brings us suffering, right? And it affects everyone on this planet. There's no one on the planet that can ever control everything to go their way, right? Which may sound obvious, but what if you were to believe that there is a universal solution to this universal problem? Well, that is in fact the goal of Vipassana. So the Vipassana website actually describes all this in a much more eloquent detail than I ever can. So definitely take a read through it if you're interested in understanding more about what Vipassana is. You can check out dhamma.org. That is DHAMMA.org. And I'll put the link in the show notes as well. But just for context right now, what Vipassana is a way of self-observation, okay, which means understanding our own lived experiences and becoming aware of how we react to them, and then actually changing our habit patterns so that we can remain balanced, peaceful, and in harmony with ourselves and with others. So in Vipassana, they call it equanimity, which is also a new word, by the way, that I learned. Equanimity. I looked up the dictionary when I got home, and I noted that the dictionary defines it as the evenness of the mind, especially under stress. Equanimity in Sanskrit, that is called upeksha. So all of this sounds so wonderful, right? How we can keep an even-keeled mind even during times of stress or suffering. Of course, that sounds like a universal solution to a universal problem. Well, I can tell you candidly, from my real lived experience after attending that 10-day silent retreat in July, I truly feel that this experience has been one of the most difficult but cathartic experiences I have ever had in my life. And I don't say such things lightly, okay, because this is coming from someone who could, I'll face it, I could never meditate before. I wouldn't even call myself a newbie. Like some of you might be wondering, did you have prior meditation experience before you went to such a intensive retreat? The answer is absolutely not. I literally didn't think I could meditate before this retreat because I would try these guided meditation thingies, that you get on these apps and such. And I could barely sit for 10 minutes without tossing the towel. And now, after having attended this retreat, I can honestly say that all of that has changed thanks to this beautiful and special process that I am truly fortunate to have experienced. So let me step back a little bit and share with you first why I decided to attend this course in the first place. So I mentioned that in the last episode, one of my reasons being that as an entrepreneur, I have definitely faced a lot of ups and downs, and I'm sure every entrepreneur will tell you that this journey is like a roller coaster ride. And it's been one of my personal development goals for sure to start to learn how to keep a more even-keeled mind, equanimity, right? To be more balanced. And also from more of a professional development angle, this is where my work in equity, diversity, inclusion really kicks in. I've been really curious about the different practices that I even teach. Okay, so I, as many of you know, host workshops in storytelling, right? Helping people understand through their own lived experience and being able to receive and hear the lived experiences of others, how to appreciate the diversity in these lived experiences, how to appreciate our differences, to even celebrate them, and how to create the conditions for having an inclusive and psychologically safe work environment. This is basically the essence of what I train on, what I consult on, what I teach. At the same time, I personally believe, and it's a matter of my own personal integrity, that I can only teach things that I personally have experience in, that I've personally observed and lived through myself. So when I talk about things like sitting in discomfort, this process was literally keeping me accountable to practice what I preach, right? How can I better sit through my own discomfort and walk the talk? How does that feel to sit through discomfort? The second piece of this is around change. A big part of my work is helping to guide leaders and teams through the process of change, managing their own emotions, managing their team's emotions when it comes to change, because change is inherently an uncomfortable process. Learning and growth are inherently uncomfortable processes. And a topic that is often as charged and complex, like equity, diversity, and inclusion, change is difficult, right? And so I also wanted to really, for myself and my own personal professional development, work through that process of change, being able to be more comfortable with change, and also being able to hold up a mirror to myself and face through self-awareness and self-observation, self-reflection, face my own strengths and weaknesses and habit patterns. So these are all of sort of the benefits that I had heard that Vipassana helps with, right? So there's mindfulness and presence. And I've had others that I know who have participated in Vipassana and have always come back sharing such positive things about their experience around mindfulness and presence, right? Just how they've been able to develop this heightened sense of mindfulness, how they've been able to live more fully in the moment. Many have shared with me how this practice brings them that inner peace through observing sensations directly in the body. Because Vipassana, a lot of it is around observing the mind-matter interaction. So observing how your thoughts influence sensations in your body, because the two are connected. Mind-matter connection is so important to understand, and I don't think enough emphasis is given on that. So this practice of observing sensations and thoughts without reaction is that practice of equanimity, and so many people that I know who have attended have shared with me that it's brought them that. Also mental clarity. We've all heard how continuous meditation practice can enhance our mental clarity and our focus. And Vipassana in particular can allow individuals to see how their own thoughts and behavior patterns are affecting them and affecting their emotional regulation, teaching us how to reduce reactivity and fostering that sort of calm and balanced approach. And then also I was really interested in the discipline and the resilience parts of these practices. So one of the things about attending a course like this, they say even on the Vipassana website, you can check it out, that if you've never done Vipassana before, you're considered a new student. And as a new student, you have to participate in their 10-day process. That is the first step, and that is your foundation. You can't do any other courses unless you've taken the first 10-day course. And within that 10-day course, there are rules that you have to live by. They call them shila in the course. And there are different rules, but one of the rules is noble silence, which means you're not talking to anyone, not even other co-meditators, not the other co-participants. So after you arrive on day 0 and you go through an orientation process, this noble silence starts. And then for almost 10 days after that, you are not talking to anyone. You are also giving away or giving up, surrendering your phone or laptop or any devices that you may have that may connect you to the outside world. So there is zero communication with the outside world. You're not even able to talk to your family. The family can reach the center through an emergency line if there is a real emergency. However, there is no talking to family. So you can imagine how intense this is, right? And how really being able to disconnect from the noise of the outside world, other voices, forces you to be able to sit with your own voice. And that's terrifying, right? When I first heard about that, I was worried because I was like, I don't know if I can sit with my own thoughts for 10 days. That just sounds really intense. And, I'm going to go crazy doing that. So I had my own reservations, which is what I talked about a little bit in the last episode. But I'll share with you in a moment how that was such a game changer in this process in terms of being able to focus on meditation itself and work through our thoughts and mental patterns. So yeah, I was really kind of intrigued by the discipline of silence, the timetable and the schedule and all of these things that they have as rules, as shila to be followed while you're at the center during the 10-day retreat that can foster sort of that self-discipline and patience. and how really this deep sort of insight can bring about awareness for you in the nature of your mind and the nature of reality, leading to profound shifts in your own understanding of your life and your existence. So these are all kinds of the reasons of why I decided to do this meditation. And I also have to say that the transformation for me has been profound. And I'll talk about this in terms of how the process actually unfolded over the 10 days. So the first few days, just getting settled, just getting to understand the rules, getting to observe the timetable. And by the way, the day starts for you at 4 a.m. and the meditation starts at 4:30 a.m. The meals are all vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian all my life, so that didn't bother me at all. I welcomed it, but I know for many who are not vegetarians, that alone is a factor that puts them away in terms of their belief as to whether or not they can do this for 10 days. But for me, that was not a problem. So there is a vegetarian diet. You're served a really hearty and wholesome breakfast and lunch, and dinner is not a dinner. So there is no dinner. There is tea and fruits. And the first few days, I will be honest, were incredibly challenging. Just even waking up that early, sitting down to meditate on an empty stomach. And the meditation process initially is about observing your respiration. So your breath patterns coming in and out. And I'm not going to share too much of the detail of this because I don't want to give this all away. I think it's really, really important that if you are actually considering to go to a meditation retreat of this Vipassana process, that you experience it directly and follow the guidelines and instructions that you're given and that you're taught during the course. I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of how it works, but I'll just briefly say the first few days are just about observing your breath. Okay. And so I was sitting there, first day, 4:30 a.m., empty stomach on the meditation mat, trying to follow the guidelines, observing my breath, and my mind went, okay, I observed it, in breath, out breath, done. That took about a second. Now what? And so the now what process started. Okay, now what? Now what? And a minute later, I realized that my mind was wandering, distracted, thinking about other thoughts, not thinking about the breath, and I'm trying to bring it back to the breath. Okay, concentrate on your breath, Gayathri. Concentrate on your breath. And then again, a second later, it was like, okay, done. Now what? And then it dawned on me that, holy, I have to sit here for 10 hours a day? 10 hours a day for 10 days? Just doing this? Like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. What am I doing? What am I doing? I struggled so much, folks, in the first couple of days. In fact, this is when your mind starts doing tricks on you, by the way. So it's summertime and my mind is now thinking about all of the things I could be doing over the summertime, right? Like going for a bike ride with my kids and grabbing ice cream. That's what I should be doing. What in the world am I doing sitting here in this meditation retreat on the top of this mat and at 4:30 a.m. on an empty stomach? So this was my inner conflict for at least the first few days, was just even getting my mind to focus. And it took a tremendous amount of willpower, I'll be honest, to not just get up and leave. I guess in a way my stubbornness helps. I am somewhat of a stubborn person. The stubborn part of me kicked in to say, nope, I made a commitment that I'm going to be here for 10 days. And as difficult as this is going to be, you are going to keep your bum seated here and figure this out. So I guess that's what kept me from not quitting that early on, because it was really, really difficult just to even get my mind to focus. But then I'd say around day 3 or 4, I went from just being constantly distracted by random thoughts all over the place and frustrated that I couldn't focus just on the breath, the one thing that I was supposed to do. My mind couldn't do that. It was instead all over the place. I went from that to then kind of sitting back and seeing the patterns of thoughts. It was really, really intriguing how this happened. But, what comes to mind for me is if you've watched the Inside Out movie, for those of you who have watched it, you'll get this reference. If you haven't watched it, oh my gosh, this is an amazing movie. I know that the part 2 is out now too, which I haven't watched yet and I'm hoping to catch. But this is really kind of like the Inside Out movie. In a sense, you now have this inner preview into the workings of your brain. Okay, imagine you're with your eyes closed. All you see is how the workings of your brain operate. Okay, the different emotions like anger, like joy, fear, all of these emotions that are sort of running the show a little bit. And then the thoughts as well that are running the show, you start to see sort of the recurring thought patterns that are coming up, where your mind tends to go so often. And I would say that was like the first transformational moment for me, was to be able to like step back and sit on the bleachers and watch this playground in front of me. And on this playground is my mind. And this movie is playing out here on this playground of my mind and all of the thoughts and emotions within that mind. And it was fascinating for me to be able to see, wow, I've never actually thought about thinking in this way. I think this is what they call metacognition, where you think about your thinking and what that reveals to you in terms of those habit patterns that you have, in terms of the things that you usually like to think about. And what I noticed, they talk about this in the course as well, is that the mind refuses to stay in the present moment. So there are two playgrounds for the mind. And this is my mind. I'll speak for myself. Maybe others have experienced this as well. There are two playgrounds that the mind likes to go to, either the past or the future. Doesn't like to stay in the present moment, even though you're giving your mind the task to be present, to focus on your breath, to concentrate. Outside of those deep focused concentration windows, your mind is either playing in the past or it's playing in the future. And within each of these playgrounds, there are certain, let's call it structures that the mind loves playing in. Maybe there's a swing, maybe there is a slide, monkey bars, whatever. I would definitely call my mind a monkey mind. So it loved the monkey bars, just jumping from one branch to another, and one branch to another, and going off into those branches that have been deeply patterned in your mind. So let's say there was a past experience that you had that was deeply impactful for you. It could have been a positive experience. It could have also been a very negative experience, a traumatic experience. And you start to see how your mind sort of replays and reclaims that memory, going back to that branch, swinging from one branch to another and going back to that branch. And I was like, oh, wow. This is fascinating that this type of memory seems to have had such a grip on me. I kid you not, I had some very profound aha moments in those first few days around particular memories that I believe have now created some very difficult habit patterns that I thought were difficult to change, but now I have crystal clear clarity on why I was stuck in those habit patterns. Repeated thoughts kept influencing those habit patterns, and now how I could start to shift them. And that alone, that profound sort of self-awareness and self-observation alone is something that I feel I have gained so tremendously from this process. So that's one. The second part of this is observing the body sensation. So I'd say the first few days was all about the monkey mind and trying to sort of tame the monkey mind and starting to see the patterns of thought that the mind likes to go to the past or the future, that it likes to go to these types of particular memories or these types of particular imaginations about the future. And by the way, but my future imaginations were always coming back to things like my to-do list, my to-do list, my to-do list. And I myself was starting to get frustrated because here I am, like this is someone who, in my professional work, I tell folks that it's all about the journey. When you're managing change, when you're or going through a process to become more inclusive, it's all about the journey. It's not about the destination. These are things that I get paid to teach people how to do that. And here I was sitting there struggling with that same process to just sit in that discomfort of just being present in the present moment, not thinking about the past, not imagining all of the things that I need to do, the to-do list, the planning and the analyzing and what to do in the future. to put all of that aside and just sit in that discomfort. So that was the first learning. And then the second learning turned to my body. And I will say that was also something after day 4, day 5, maybe even day 6, day 7, that took me a long time to just start to embody. When I say embody, I mean starting to feel body sensations. So Vipassana teaches you how to start to observe your own body sensations, and starting from, really big sensations that you might be having to getting to really, really, really fine and subtle sensations in your body. And I found that process again challenging, because even though I had by that time, day 5, day 6, gotten a better hold of my thoughts and my focusing abilities, I found it really hard to just be able to embody and feel what the body is feeling from head to toe. And what really shifted for me was actually a practice that I teach in my work about creating safety for yourself in your body. So for many people who have, let's say, been victims of gender-based violence or other types of violence, don't actually feel the safety in their own bodies. They don't feel safety in their minds, the psychological safety that they can truly be who they are and be vulnerable, be authentic, and just show up and be in the world as they are. And this is a very, very deep topic, of course, and I'm not going to be able to do a justice to, trauma-informed storytelling and all of the things that I do through my work in this podcast. But I will say that the first step is understanding and creating that psychological safety for yourself. And I realized I needed myself to create that safety for myself in my own body. And focusing the mind on the present moment through respiration was one thing, but starting to observe sensations was a whole other process. And what I really loved, and my second biggest takeaway, was, again, this practice of equanimity. To be equanimous is to accept things as they are. In the class, they call this yatha bhuta, appreciating things as they are. Not as how you would like it to be, but things as they are. And so I had to teach myself how to not only sit in that discomfort, but accept that this is my current reality. And not only that there is an impermanence to this current reality. And in the course, they teach this word anicca, meaning that impermanence. Things will change. This too shall pass. From moment to moment, you are literally training your mind and your body to observe these sensations and accept the reality as it is, and also accept that this too shall pass. So let's say you are having a pleasant sensation in your body. This too shall pass. So don't get attached to that, right? Let's say you are having an unpleasant sensation in your body. Don't develop an aversion to it. Tell yourself this too shall pass and accept the reality as it is moment to moment. So this was truly a gem in terms of the whole learning process for me. And by the end of day 10, it reached a point where I could feel vibrations in my body. It was kind of like being an underwater diver, let's say, who for the very first time in his or her life dives underwater with the special equipment in the nighttime and starts to see these sea creatures just sparkle and light up. And this is actually how I felt being able to witness that in my own body. It's so hard for me to put this in words because it feels like it was such a precious and beautiful and sacred experience that I hope, anyone who sets out on this type of a journey of meditation, and particularly Vipassana meditation, gets to experience. And I also recognize that the whole idea here is not to get attached to that experience, right? But to just understand the nature of reality, and that the nature of reality is impermanent. And whether there are ups or downs in life, to remain even-keeled and equanimous. So that's how the whole experience unfolded. I hope that those of you who are listening can now get a sense for maybe what might be in store for you if you go. But I will say, as a disclaimer, this is, of course, only speaking from my own personal experience. I don't represent that this could be the experience for yourself or for anyone else, because, of course, every person is unique. And so this journey is one that has to be uniquely experienced as well. And I hope that you do have that gift, as I have received this gift in your life, to be able to experience something like this if you are so inclined. The two things that I'm walking away most is an absolute sense of gratitude. I felt so grateful to the entire staff at the Vipassana Meditation Center in Alberta, to all of the servers, to the assistant teacher, to the teacher himself, that is S.N. Goenkaji. Goenkaji has started the Vipassana meditation centers around the world. He is no longer alive. Unfortunately, this year would have been his 100th birthday, but what a gift that Goenkaji has given to the world, that he has actually recorded all of his audio and video recordings for which we could learn from, and established this beautiful network of meditation centers around the world. And what a gift it is to be able to receive this kind of life-changing wisdom. I'm filled with such a deep sense of gratitude to be able to experience this. I'm also filled with a sense of, I'm wanting to shift the way that I approach my life in general and even business, and approaching that from a point of view of service. Service meaning that whatever you choose to give, you don't have an expectation of anything in return. I will take just even the small example of this podcast. As you all know, this is a volunteer podcast, so I don't get paid to make this content. I'm not in any way endorsing any of the organizations that I talk about, or there's not any sort of paid endorsement or anything like that. There isn't anything that I gain financially from doing this. But honestly, I'm sharing this experience so vulnerably with you today because I hope that by sharing that, maybe even if one person gets impacted or inspired to try something like this for themselves in their life, that's great. And if this sparked your curiosity, if any of the episodes that I record on this show sparks your curiosity and helps you to start a learning journey of your own, I feel like that is an act of service, and that's something that I want to continue doing. And this process has just reinforced that for me. And hope that you enjoyed listening. Feel free to leave a message on LinkedIn, where this episode will be posted, or on Instagram, Campfire Kinship. I will link all of those sites in the show notes. And I'll also post a blog about this on campfirekinship.com, so definitely do check this out. I would like to end with a saying that I learned from the Vipassana Center that is to the effect of saying, may all beings be happy. Bhavatu Sarva Mangalam. This is what I would hear Goenkaji say every day in our meditation sessions at the end of the practice in his audio recording. And this is my wish for the world as well, from the bottom of my heart. Signing off for today.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Heart to Heart. I'm your host, Gayathri Shukla, founder of Campfire Kinship. If you'd like to learn more about storytelling, come visit campfirekinship.com. If you liked today's episode, hit the subscribe button and join us for future episodes. This podcast is being produced in partnership with CJSW 90.9 in Treaty 7 land in Calgary.